And that's exactly what it is. Don't want anything other than just to express appreciation, because everybody here in one way or another has worked on my behalf and on behalf of the principles of liberty and free market and those types of things, because that's what we collectively believe in. And so I know that the first week of January, life is even going to get much, much, much crazier. And even though this may not be the optimal travel time, literally just want to take a few minutes and stop in and just connect, say thank you, and ask that you continue to communicate and stay in touch. We're getting established. We've got a fabulous team. I'm so pleased with the team in Washington, D.C. and in the 3 offices that we're putting together in Idaho. We're going to be very Idaho-centric. We're going to try to make our biggest impact, that constituent service network that we build here in the state to try to help people navigate through all the federal bureaucracy that is out there, and make that as pleasant of an experience as it possibly can be. And I kind of wish that I was going in under different circumstances than being a freshman in the minority of the new Congress, but I'm sure Nancy will want to take my counsel every week. Not real naive on that front. But I think that I'm going to do a couple things a little bit different, and we haven't said anything publicly about this. But on January 3rd, I'll be in Washington D.C. and I'll stand up on the House floor, and I'm going to be involved with that, take oath there. I looked at the agenda, and the way it looks like it's going to play out is there'll be a vote just before we take office, and that will be to elect the new speaker. And I do expect that to be Nancy Pelosi. So we're going to do that. And I'll stand with my colleagues and do that. Right after that, most if not all of them are going to get on a bus, and they're going to go to Williamsburg, Virginia. And there's a continued orientation thing. I'm not. I'm going to jump on a plane. I'm coming back to Idaho, and we're going to orchestrate another swearing in. And it's going to be with little fanfare on purpose, but it's going to be at the Republican meeting on the 5th in Idaho. If I'm going to stand up and make a promise, I'm going to stand up and make that promise in front of Idahoans, not Nancy Pelosi. So, and that's not a shot at the system, but it's just this is where my commitment is, and I have to remember that, and I need you to continue to remind me of that. But so far, you know what? Everything's been good. The rest of the delegation has all reached out, and so we're communicating on a frequent basis. I know that we'll be disagreeing on certain things, but we will be communicating with the purpose of trying to leverage as much Idaho influence as we possibly can in that place. It's just as swampy as you might imagine. The living accommodations are extremely expensive, unless you want to take up some of the lobby firms and get a half-price townhome or condo or apartment or whatever with no strings attached. That's just one example. There are many. I was greeted with a $200 ethics fee violation. I wound up going to their office. What the heck's this for? Well, you didn't turn in such and such a report. Well, how was I supposed to know that? Well, you're just supposed to know that. Well, anyway, there's those types of things. And by the way, if you call the House Ethics Committee, you'll get a recording. And the very first option on the recording is, if you want to file a complaint against a member, press 1. And so that gives you just a little bit of a feeling of the culture and how that's developed there. But you know what? That's why we're there, and that's why we're going, and that's why we're trying to have influence on this system. And there's just a number of folks here. I think Representative Dixon slipped out. Jim Woodward is here. Heather is here, and these guys You know what? Who'd I miss going into office? These guys are going into a similar fray. It's just in Boise instead of Washington, D.C. And so they need your prayers. They need your communication, your support. And I encourage everyone to communicate with them. And if your travels will allow for you to make a stop in Washington, D.C. over the next 2 years, consider that. And give me just a little bit of notice so that we can connect. That's one of my accountability tools. And if you haven't been there, the history is fabulous. There really is some very, very interesting things to see. And so, Travis, I know you helped coordinate a lot of this, and every single person in the room has had a role and has touched my life in some way or another. Danielle from the get-go. Tim Castney is going to be working with our team based out of the Coeur d'Alene area right here, and we're going to have a very good group, and we'll be attentive, and I love it here. So I'll be back a lot, but today is just simply one of thank you, and just encourage your ongoing communication. I just want you to know that you're special and that you have an impact on people, and I know that because you've had an impact on me. So. If we hadn't had a chance to personally say hi, please give me that chance. And if there is a question or a comment, I'll try to just address that really quick. Yeah.
I just have a question. Is there anything that can be done ethically to Dianne Feinstein for what she did to our Supreme Court justice?
You know,
yes, thank you.
I mean, it's a whole ethics thing, and I was really bothered by that. And I've been meaning to, kind of connect with our representatives back there and say, for her to get away with something like that, I think is criminal.
My perception is, and it's just that because I'm not even sworn in yet, but my perception, what I've seen from at least my vantage point is there is a responsible mechanism that her own party could take, or for that matter, the Congress as a whole could take. I don't think there's a political will to do that. And in a lot of areas, I think we have the same dynamic in Boise. There's a lot of things that need to happen, but there's just not necessarily the collective will to do it. A lot of people have the will to win, but they don't have the will to do the right thing or the will to prepare to win. And so that's just off the top of my head. But I don't think there's a will to do it. I will say there's been a couple of blessings. And I really don't know why, but as far as I know, I'm the only new member that both the president and the vice president have given one-on-one personal time with. And you take those communications and those connections to heart, and there's a rapport that's starting to build, and both of them were very significant, and I think that they're likely to continue. Unfortunately, one of the first things that may happen is the minority party is on defense when it comes to impeachment hearings, and I think that's a very real possibility. But nevertheless, that's the nature of the beast we're going into. But I think that's it. Anything else? Yeah, Don.
Russ, I just wanted to thank you for stepping up to the plate and knowing the din of inequity that you're going to. Thank you.
You know, it is. You're welcome, and it may only last one go around here. We'll see. You might throw me out, or I might voluntarily step out. I don't know. But it is an honor, and that's one of the things I hope to be able to I want to help reestablish. Every time I talk to students in particular, I try to remind them, look, we live in a constitutional republic, and nowhere else on earth is there the ability and the constitutional mandate for a representative republic. And folks, good, bad, or indifferent, the way this system works is when I stand up on that floor, or when I vote, or when I take any kind of action, I am you. And that's how this system works. And I take that very, very seriously, because I know that I'm not going to please you every time I do. I can't. No human being can. But to that end, I want you to know that I think about stuff, that I take counsel about stuff, and then I ultimately stand for, I think, principles that I believe in, that we collectively believe in, is what's going to be represented. That's how it works. But I don't take it lightly. You shouldn't take it lightly. And and you don't, because you're here and you've already helped me with this. But you're welcome. And yeah.
Is there any move afoot that you've heard to appoint Raul to any position within the government since he was not elected governor?
You know, I have not heard that. However, I'm probably one of the last ones that would. My focus has been someplace else, and by the way, he's been very good to work with. He's the transition has been and is continuing to be pretty much seamless. There's a couple of the critical people on his staff that we're going to maintain. There's also, you know, for the most part, it's going to be a largely new staff, because I need to surround myself with people that I know that I've got a loyalty with. But he has been great, and I don't think he's landed with his next step in life yet, but I honestly just don't know. Yeah. All right, well, you slipped and slid on your way here, and you'll slip and slide on your way out. But I want you to know the door is always open, okay? And to the extent I've got bandwidth, we're going to be available, and we're going to have a staff that is receptive and honorable. And I think there might be one more.
Oh, yeah. Well, whatever you can do to have more jobs for logging and just jobs would be good.
Resource industry has got to be a top priority.
Yeah, because we've had young people that have to move away because they can't find jobs and stuff.
I got it.
You know
Do my
about that.
best. Thank
So
you.
it'd be great having it,
Thank
that
you.
you're willing to go there.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Russ.